All right, well, it's inauguration day here, and it's a busy day. There's a lot of ceremony going on, but there's also a plan here on the first day to have as many as 100 executive orders. Joining me now to talk about it, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, what can we expect to see here with these executive orders?
Well, Donald Trump said 100 or so. So I can't wait to see the or so part, because it could be north of 100 executive orders. Dan, it's going to be a flurry, and it's going to happen in two batches. The expectation is to have some signed at the White House right after he's sworn in, and then others actually at Capital One Arena, where he'll speak to followers. Listen to me, to people that voted for him. I better hold off on the followers, aspect of this. But anyhow, he'll do some executive orders there. All right, so what can we expect? Look, it's going to be in three buckets overall. Obviously, immigration. The other one will be energy. The other one would be kind of, call it government, DEI, regulations, gender, all of that kind of coming in under the bucket of governmental regulations. So I don't want to go into all the details. We can, as you ask other questions here, but look, on immigration specifically, he's going to declare the border a national emergency. So what does that do exactly? That frees up some funding that he can use for some mass deportations that he wants to carry out across the country. The funding here is important because he only has a certain amount of funds that they can use under that continuing resolution that was passed back in December. That runs out in March, and then some new funding can begin once they figure it out. So he needs money to actually get some of this mass deportation stuff done. Because look, they're going to go around. There's about 660,000 illegal immigrants in this country that have committed crimes specifically. Those are the ones they're going to go after in Chicago and other places, but that costs money. It takes a lot of ICE agents, and you've got a lot of a cost associated with that. So that's going to be number one. And then if he's got remain in Mexico that he's going to re-implement. He's going to end catch and release. So there's all different things he's going to do on immigration. Then there's energy. He's going to open up more land for drilling, that type of thing. He's going to try to, from an executive order standpoint, kind of limit some of what Joe Biden did in that Green New Deal, that Inflation Reduction Act. Some of it will obviously need to be overturned by Congress, but from an executive order standpoint, he'll try to do that. And then third, and this is going to be interesting, from a governmental standpoint, he's going to look specifically at doing executive orders on the gender ideology aspect of it. In other words, there's going to be language that he's going to come out and say that the United States says that there are two genders only, male and female. And he will specifically say that a female is a human adult female. I mean, the fact that we even have to codify this as an executive order is just interesting. So it's that type of stuff, along with men will not perform being allowed in women's sports and all of that. So I can go down the list of some of these things, but those are the three buckets, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because we have this, and look, there's other stuff like the climate stuff, and I don't know if this is part of the day one bucket, David, but I mean, there's talk of pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord and that being on the agenda as well for the executive actions. Another question here, just overall on the executive actions, is this going to be sort of the back and forth we see with all the presidents now? They're just going to have tons of these. So then let's say a Democrat wins it, after Trump's second term here. Are they just going to then turn around and undo these things? I mean, and is this common? Is this what they've always done? Or is it just on a higher scale now? I mean, just give me a sense of how this compares with how it's been done in the past and what it looks like going forward.
Well, you're right in the sense that, the Democrat president comes in and undoes what Republican presidents did on executive orders and vice versa. Here's the difference this time around. Donald Trump, in his first week as president in 2017, there was one executive order. One. Joe Biden did 9 in his first week. Now Donald Trump is coming in and doing, we believe, at least 100 or more in one day alone. So this is taken to a whole other level at this point. I think that's important to point out. As it relates to, I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question? Oh, just about, the way it's going to go back and forth. Yeah, look, here's the thing. So there's something called the global gag rule. I won't get into all the specifics, but you might have heard it as the Mexico City policy, that type of thing. And this has nothing to do with immigration, it has to do with abortion. This has been going on since Reagan and then Clinton and just back and forth for each president, basically not allowing taxpayer money to be allowed to go towards abortions with NGOs, non-government non-governmental organizations. So Trump did not allow, I should say, taxpayer money to go to NGOs for abortions when he was president in 2017. It was one of the first executive orders he did within a couple of days, or excuse me, the first week. But then Biden reversed that. So now Trump is going to reverse it back. So that's the type of thing you're talking about. And specifically on abortion, we expect Trump to do that, maybe not today, but within the first few days, he will, in essence, put in what they call the global gag rule, which is to make sure taxpayer money does not go to abortions overseas by these NGOs.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask too, obviously executive order is one way to get things done. When we're looking at Congress now and the amount of control that Republicans have at the moment with Trump in office, what can we expect to see as far as actual policy going through Congress here that gets implemented, which obviously is a lot, more kind of fixed and harder to get rid of once you get it in through Congress than an executive order. So what do you expect to see here as this first term kicks off?
I think within the first 100 days, probably by April, which is what, about 90 days, February, March, April. Yeah, about within 90 days or so, Republicans are going to try to pass what we've called budget reconciliation. That's that one big, beautiful bill that Trump keeps talking about. It could end up being two bills. In other words, two budget reconciliation bills. We will see. But what does that mean, budget reconciliation? Everybody's kind of, I don't get it. Basically, it's just a vehicle for Trump to get a lot of his agenda passed in the easiest way in Washington, which is just with a simple majority. You don't need 60 votes in the Senate. You don't need two-thirds in the House. You just need simple majorities. So it's the easiest way to do it. That's why they want to do it through budget reconciliation. So you say budget reconciliation, well, that means money, right? Right. That means that anything that they're going to put in policy-wise has to be tied to revenue or taxes somehow, some way. So that's basically the overarching gist of it. Having said that, legislatively, what they want to put in the budget reconciliation is certain immigration reform proposals that they'll have to figure out ways that it makes sense that it's tied to the budget. So, for example, in immigration, they're going to make sure that there's funding in there to fund the border wall, to fund all of these mass deportations that we've been talking about. They're going to try to do that. And a lot of other things that may skirt the budget reconciliation rules. Remember, it has to be tied to spending or taxes. The Republicans are going to try to put some stuff in there that might not be germane to the budget. That's where some of the debate will be. And then, of course, there'll be energy proposals in there, everything from the Green New Deal to, making sure, I said the Green New Deal, getting rid of Green New Deal provisions, also the EV mandates and all of that type of stuff. They're going to try to limit that or get rid of that. That'll be tied to budget and spending. So you have those two things, immigration and energy are going to be the two big areas specifically that they're going to try to get done through budget reconciliation. The one last part, which is a big one, the tax cuts. Remember, Donald Trump signed those tax cuts into law in 2017, or in his first term, I should say, and now they expire at the end of the year. So they've got to get those extended. That's why we're talking either one bill or two bills, because there's talk in Congress that they want to keep those tax cuts separate and do it in a second bill. Trump's like, look, I'd rather just get immigration, energy, and the taxes all in one bill. The problem is the tax portion of this is a little bit more tricky. So maybe that's why it's a second bill. But those are the three big legislative portions they want to get done.
All right. And then politically, last thing here, I think that, Democrats, of course, are going to try to probably then counter this by saying, oh, look at all these, the progress we've made. And he's undoing that. But given how Americans have struggled here in the last 4 years with the economy and whatnot, if there's progress, I mean, that's a gamble I think the Democrats would be taking, because if there's progress, well, then I don't know that people would be so quick to want to undo all of these actions and bills or whatever comes forward that Trump and the Trump administration passes, because if things improve, you're not going to be the one that wants to change it back to how it was.
Yeah, well, Democrats have a problem on their hand. I mean, we keep hearing about a Trump mandate. Well, it's true, but it goes beyond the fact that he won all swing states and he won 312 electoral votes. He did better in every single state except for one. 49 out of 50 states, he had more votes this time around than he did in 2017. That is remarkable. That's kind of Reagan-Mondale-esque as it relates to where we are today in this society to be able to do something like that. So once again, he didn't win California, he didn't win New York, but he had much better vote totals in every single state, including the liberal ones. So Democrats are going to have to figure out quickly how they play this, because Trump does have a mandate, and it's not just because he's president with electoral votes. I will say this, as it relates to how this goes forward specifically. What's going to be interesting here is that the mandate itself is fine, but the problem is that for Trump, it's not about Democrats. It's going to be about the House Freedom Caucus. It's going to be about conservative members. Because remember, when all of this spending stuff comes, in other words, the tax cuts and more money for the border wall and all X, Y, and Z, and for mass deportations, that's going to mean a lot more money to be spent. So where are the offsets? And so you've got the House Freedom Caucus and fiscally conservative members that might be Trump's worst enemy here, actually, not the Democrats, because they're going to say, well, wait a minute, you want to spend all this money? Great, but how are we going to offset this with other cuts? And then we're going to get into some murky areas of where are those cuts exactly. And if the House Freedom Caucus members are not satisfied with those cuts, then they could derail something like this. Now, look, they want to be Trump's, friends here. They want to be friends to Trump, but they also take their job very seriously, being fiscal conservative. So they're going to have to figure out the offsets here. And this is where Washington goes into fuzzy math and is able to kind of work it out. And somehow 10 years down the road, this will all be paid for. And let's remember, tariffs. Trump has threatened tariffs. That doesn't mean he's going to actually implement them and they will be successful. I think he's using the tariffs on China and Mexico and other places as just an art of the deal tactic to make sure that China and others play fair in the trading world and beyond. I'm not necessarily sure that tariffs are going to actually be revenue coming into the United States, but if they are, that's what Trump's going to say. Say, look, we're going to get money coming in on tariffs, and that's the way to do it. He calls it the external revenue service.
All right, there's a lot to follow, and David, I know you will be following it here in the coming days and weeks, the first 100 days and beyond of the Trump administration. CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Well, Dan, you're welcome. And if you need me, I'll be over at CBS. I'm getting Alka-Seltzer as we speak. I tell you what, that's going to, there's the shot and the chaser. The shot will be the adrenaline of the Trump administration, which is exciting. The chaser will be the Alka-Seltzer that comes after.
Absolutely. All right, David, thank you.
You bet.